Have you ever experienced that electrifying moment when a simple, well-placed touch instantly sparks powerful chemistry? Today, we'll unlock the hidden secrets behind subtle yet irresistible gestures that leave a woman utterly captivated and longing for your closeness. Forget cliché dating advice. This is about tapping into genuine connection, mastering the quiet confidence that sets you apart from everyone else. Stick around until the end, because we're revealing the ultimate key that ties every technique together, creating unforgettable moments she'll replay endlessly in her mind. Want more real wisdom to enhance your relationships? Hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. Your support keeps the insightful content flowing, helping you build the deeper connections you truly deserve. Have you ever taken a moment to think deeply about the invisible threads that connect two people, especially when one of them has accumulated a wealth of life experience? In today's society, we're often reminded of the differences that exist between individuals of varying ages. Stereotypes and assumptions tend to dominate the conversation, painting older women as less inclined to seek or enjoy profound intimacy, or more reserved in their desires. Yet the reality can be quite the opposite. Older women, like anyone else, possess yearnings for understanding, comfort, excitement, and authentic connection. The fact that they may have more life experience only serves to create the potential for an even richer emotional bond if approached thoughtfully and respectfully. This script sets out to shed light on 7 specific touch points that, when used correctly, can spark deep emotional and physical resonance in an older woman. But to reduce it to a mere step-by-step guide for where to touch would be to misunderstand its real power. At its core, intimacy is a conversation, a wordless dialogue that unfolds between bodies and hearts. By carefully placing your hand on someone's lower back or softly caressing the nape of her neck, you aren't just performing mechanical gestures. You're communicating presence, care, and a unique kind of attentiveness that says, "I see you, and I value the totality of who you are." To connect at this level requires a mindset that balances confidence with genuine humility. Sometimes younger men assume that an older woman wants a partner who either projects dominant strength at all times or who tries too hard to appear worldly and experienced. Yet the truth is that emotional intelligence and empathy can be far more compelling qualities. Yes, confidence matters, but it's a brand of confidence that is not laced with arrogance, a self-assuredness that remains open to learning about her nuances and receptive to her boundaries. Indeed, the emotional landscape of an older woman can be layered. She may carry stories of past heartbreak, moments of joy, periods of self-discovery, and the responsibilities that come with careers or family life. Recognizing those layers doesn't mean you must tiptoe around them timidly, but you should remain aware that every touch and gesture might resonate differently than it would with someone who has fewer life experiences. This awareness is the essence of genuine connection. In the paragraphs that follow, we'll examine 7 key areas of physical touch. Each one holds unique power in fostering closeness. Yet the unspoken truth is that successful intimacy lies in how naturally these touches arise from sincere, emotional connection. You're not merely learning a set of tactics. You're exploring a pathway toward genuine warmth and resonance. Keep this in mind as we unfold each step, because the ultimate goal here is not just to ignite fleeting desire. It's to establish a bond that intertwines both physical and emotional sensibilities in the most authentic way possible. Before examining these 7 touch points in detail, it's vital to acknowledge the broader context of emotional receptivity and personal history. Older women, much like older men or individuals of any age, carry a tapestry of experiences that influence how they respond to touch. We live in a world where meaningful interactions can sometimes be overshadowed by shallow engagements and quick judgments. Therefore, a man who offers authentic empathy, gentleness, and respect can stand out as a refreshing exception. Such a man doesn't approach with a playbook of manipulative strategies, but rather brings a willingness to connect on multiple levels: intellectual, emotional, and physical. This emphasis on holistic connection addresses a fundamental misconception that physical touch operates in isolation, unrelated to emotional underpinnings. In reality, the body and mind are intimately linked. For many people, and especially for women with rich life experience, an emotional bond can heighten the impact of even the lightest caress. If she senses that you truly get her, that you appreciate her experiences, her strengths, and even her vulnerabilities, she's more likely to feel comfortable letting her guard down. This comfort, in turn, amplifies the pleasure and significance of any physical contact between you. Another factor that bears mentioning is the importance of pacing. Relationships at their best unfold naturally. Yes, there might be moments of exhilarating chemistry or spontaneous closeness, but in most cases, an older woman will observe how you conduct yourself in a variety of settings before fully opening herself to deeper forms of contact. She may look for consistency, a sense that you are the same considerate person in private as you are in public. This consistency builds the bedrock of trust, allowing each subsequent touch to mean more than the last. Attunement to nonverbal cues remains crucial. As you engage with her, whether in conversation, a playful exchange, or a sincere heart-to-heart, pay attention to the signals her body sends. Subtle shifts in posture, small changes in breathing, and the way her eyes meet yours can all reveal whether she is comfortable, intrigued, or perhaps a bit uneasy. Touch that is invited and welcomed can be an incredible bridge between two souls. Uninvited or poorly timed touch, on the other hand, can erode even a well-established rapport. By understanding and honoring her emotional context, you create fertile ground for the 7 touch points to flourish. Rather than seeing these touches as moves to be made, you'll begin to appreciate them as artful expressions of the closeness you share. Each place you choose to lay your hand, each gentle caress, becomes imbued with a significance that transcends simple physicality. It's the difference between a fleeting spark and a steady flame. One quickly extinguishes while the other has the potential to warm the heart over time. To commence our deep dive into the actual touch points, let's start with the lower back, an area frequently overlooked in common discussions about intimacy. Why is the lower back so significant? There's something quietly protective about placing a hand there. It conveys a sense of support and mindfulness, as though you're offering steadiness in a world that can sometimes feel chaotic. This is especially meaningful for an older woman who may have navigated many of life's winding roads. Even a brief, gentle touch on her lower back can say, "You can lean on me for a moment, if you'd like." Imagine a scenario. You're walking side by side in a bustling environment, maybe a crowded market, a lively festival, or a busy city street. You gently guide her through a narrow space, placing your hand at the small of her back, just enough to let her know you're there. This gesture doesn't demand attention from the outside world, nor does it intrude upon her personal space. Instead, it subtly offers reassurance and indicates your intent to safeguard her comfort. However, as unobtrusive as this gesture might seem, it's important to do it with sensitivity. The lower back is near the waistline, and not every individual, older woman or otherwise, will immediately welcome that level of closeness. If the two of you have already established a degree of trust, through conversation, shared laughs, or even a mutual recognition of your attraction, then this gentle touch can feel natural. Without that foundation, it might catch her off guard, so always read her body language to ensure that she's receptive. What makes this spot particularly powerful is that it's generally not as charged as, say, the hips or upper thighs. It's intimate enough to convey care, but not so intimate that it feels invasive under normal circumstances. In a sense, it stands at the threshold between everyday friendly contact and more obviously romantic or sexual touch. That threshold is where you can subtly begin to build the tension and emotional resonance that might deepen over time. Moreover, this action, when repeated periodically, can create a pattern of shared understanding. Each time you place your hand there, it reminds her of all the previous moments of closeness you've shared. In relationships involving older women who may have had fewer reminders of gentle care in recent years, this repetitive familiarity can become a powerful, emotional anchor. Over time, she might associate that soft, guiding touch with a sense of calm and belonging, reinforcing the emotional connection that underpins all physical intimacy. The next region to explore is the nape of the neck, an area that blends physical sensitivity with symbolic significance. By its very nature, the nape is one of the more delicate parts of the body, and it's often exposed depending on hairstyles or clothing choices. Because it's less commonly touched in casual social settings, a gentle, well-placed caress here can cut through the mundane and awaken her senses. In many cultures, the neck and nape are viewed as highly personal territories, connected to the intimate interplay of trust and vulnerability. Consider a scenario. You're leaning in to share a private joke or to speak softly in her ear when the room is noisy. Perhaps it's a family gathering, a party, or a dinner where multiple conversations are happening at once. In that moment, lightly placing your fingertips or the back of your hand against her nape can be deeply impactful, communicating that you notice her and that you value the closeness of the moment. However, as with all these touches, the manner of execution matters. If it's too sudden or too forceful, it can feel startling or even intrusive. The goal is to convey tenderness, an almost whisper-like softness. Think of it like painting a fine line on a canvas. The slightest extra pressure can disturb the delicate balance you're trying to achieve. When done correctly, a soft caress on the nape can create an electric sensation that lingers, prompting a subtle wave of goosebumps or a soft sigh. For an older woman who may be accustomed to quick hugs or perfunctory gestures, this touch can feel deeply refreshing. It stands apart from the routine greetings and casual brushes that fill most adult lives. In effect, you're offering an experience of mindful attention that says, "In this moment, I'm fully present with you." That can lead to a rush of warmth and appreciation, an affirmation that romance and a sense of being cherished are still very much on the table in her life. It's also worth noting that trust plays a paramount role here. The nape is vulnerable, both physically and psychologically. If she's not comfortable or hasn't grown to trust your intentions, your touch in this spot might be too intimate, too soon. Learning to read her comfort level is a skill you can refine with attentiveness and empathy. Sometimes a fleeting touch that lasts no more than a second can be enough to kindle the spark. If she responds positively, you can explore that space a bit more in the future, perhaps during a quiet moment of affectionate conversation. The key is to remain attuned to her signals, ensuring every caress enhances your bond rather than tests its limits. Before moving on to the subsequent touch points, let's momentarily shift our focus to the broader landscape of attraction and connection. Physical touch is undeniably powerful in face-to-face interactions, but what happens when you're apart? In our digital age, you might be surprised by how significantly words, especially when meticulously chosen, can influence desire. This is where the idea of magnetic messages or psychologically potent phrases enters the picture. Think of these messages as small sparks that, when deployed correctly, can ignite curiosity and longing. They serve as an extension of the same mindfulness you bring to physical touch. When you send a text that perfectly encapsulates how you see her, a line that acknowledges her complexity, her humor, her grace, You effectively plant a seed in her mind. Throughout the day, she may revisit that message, replaying the words in her head and feeling a tingle of excitement at the thought of your next conversation or meeting. However, wielding this power requires responsibility and genuine intent. The same could be said for physical touch, of course, but in the realm of text-based communication, misunderstandings can multiply quickly without the aid of facial expressions or tone of voice. A message that sounds playful in your mind may come across as flippant or confusing. Thus, clarity and authenticity are essential. Strive to create messages that reflect not just your desire for her physical presence, but also your admiration for her individuality and life journey. Equally important is knowing when not to send a certain type of message. If your intent is purely casual or momentary, be transparent about that. Don't leverage these powerful phrases to manufacture emotions you don't plan to honor. For an older woman who's likely had her share of superficial encounters, nothing is more disheartening than realizing someone used psychologically charged words to manipulate rather than connect. So if you discover these magnetic texts, approach them as tools for expressing genuine care, not as shortcuts to bypass real emotional investment. In many cases, these text interactions can lay the groundwork for the physical gestures discussed in this guide. When she already feels seen, appreciated, and respected through your digital communication, the transition to real-life closeness becomes smoother. The trust you build remotely paves the way for the acceptance of a light touch on her arm or a gentle hand on her lower back. In other words, virtual conversations can serve as an emotional runway, allowing you both to land softly into each other's comfort zones when you finally meet. Next on our list of key areas is the arm, a touch point that may seem mundane at first glance. After all, we often brush or bump arms with strangers in crowded places without giving it a second thought. Yet when approached with careful intention, the arm can be a remarkably effective conduit for emotional connection. Consider the scenario. You're engrossed in a heartfelt conversation with an older woman, both of you sharing personal stories or reflecting on life's turns. At a particularly poignant moment, perhaps when she expresses vulnerability or joy, you reach out and softly place your hand on her forearm. This act, although seemingly minor, communicates that you're truly there with her, acknowledging the significance of the moment. It's a type of social reciprocity. She has shared something meaningful, and in return, you offer a gentle, reassuring touch. The arm is less intimate than, say, the waist or thigh, making it a safer starting point for building rapport. In a sense, it acts as an emotional stepping stone, guiding both parties into a zone where more intimate contact might feel appropriate later on. Older women, who may have weathered various emotional storms, often appreciate signs of genuine empathy. A soft caress on the arm during a tender discussion is less likely to be interpreted as aggressive or presumptive. Instead, it can be taken as a supportive gesture, a way of saying, "I'm aligning with you in this moment. Your feelings matter, and I want to acknowledge them." That said, timing is key. If the conversation is light-hearted or comedic, a sudden weighty gesture might feel out of place. Conversely, if she's talking about something profound, a playful jab on the arm could come across as insensitive. The arm also offers flexibility. Whether you're standing, sitting side by side, or even strolling along a park pathway, it's usually within easy reach. A quick, comforting squeeze or a gentle run of your fingertips along her forearm can serve as a tactile punctuation mark in your ongoing dialogue. Over multiple interactions, these small acts accumulate into a tapestry of familiarity and trust. She starts to associate your presence with warmth and reassurance, reinforcing the connection you're gradually building. Of course, it's still possible to overdo it. Too many touches in rapid succession or touches that linger conspicuously long can make someone feel crowded. This underscores the central theme of mindful pacing. Observe her reactions and let her responses guide you. If she smiles and leans in, or reciprocates by touching your arm, that's a positive sign. If she stiffens or moves away, it may mean she's not ready for such gestures at that moment. Ultimately, the magic of the arm touch lies in its simplicity and adaptability, allowing you to cultivate an environment of emotional closeness without overwhelming the space she needs to remain comfortable. Before we transition to part 2, let's introduce a surprisingly potent area for nurturing intimacy: the knee. At first, the knee might sound like an unremarkable spot, hardly the stuff of romantic movies or passionate poetry, yet consider how often knees come into contact in daily life. Sitting next to each other on a couch, sharing a bench in a park, or perhaps enjoying a long conversation at a cafe where your legs are only inches apart. In these scenarios, your knee or hand might occasionally brush against hers. With the right context and intentions, these tiny collisions can evolve into deliberate touches that amplify closeness. You might be watching a film together on a sofa, each of you occasionally shifting your posture. During a comedic scene, you both laugh, and you place your hand lightly on her knee for just a moment, sharing in the mirth. It's a fleeting gesture, but can serve as a bridge between mere friendly camaraderie and budding affection. Much like the arm touch, the knee is less overtly sexual than other areas, so it often feels less risky for both people, yet it's enough to convey a sense of deeper kinship or interest. In many ways, the knee can act as a gauge of how receptive she is to your physical presence. If she feels at ease when your hand momentarily rests there, or if she doesn't pull away during those casual knee-to-knee brushes, it's an indication that she may be open to more forms of contact. On the flip side, if she noticeably withdraws or repositions herself to avoid that contact, it's a subtle signal that you should slow down and perhaps focus on strengthening the emotional component of your relationship before intensifying physical touch. A common theme you might notice is the importance of subtlety. Grand, sweeping gestures can sometimes be romantic, but they can also be overwhelming or appear forced if the emotional groundwork isn't ready. Small, gentle, and well-timed touches often carry a more authentic sense of connection. This is especially relevant for older women who have navigated enough of life's complexities to recognize the difference between showy displays meant to impress and genuine acts of closeness that come from the heart. In part 2, we'll continue our exploration of these intimate touch points, moving on to the remaining 3, the waist, the hands, and the wrist. Each of these areas has its own unique qualities, both in a physical and a symbolic sense. We'll also delve further into the emotional architecture that makes these touches impactful in a relationship. By combining these approaches, focusing on both the physical technique and the underlying emotional resonance, you can create experiences that resonate far more deeply than surface-level attraction. Let's move forward with this mindset of honoring her journey and building a bridge of trust with every gesture. As we venture into part 2, let's begin by revisiting the knee more thoroughly, ensuring we have a clear view of how it can transition into even deeper forms of closeness. There's a quiet power in such an unassuming area. Most individuals don't expect the knee to be a focal point for seduction or romance, which paradoxically makes it the perfect place for a gentle, disarming touch. By the time you've established a friendly rapport, having shared stories, laughs, and maybe a bit of personal vulnerability, the knee can serve as a small but significant stepping stone toward more intimate contact. Consider a relaxed setting where the two of you are side by side, maybe at a music venue with dim lighting, or simply on her living room couch after dinner. When the moment feels right, you might shift your body slightly so that your legs are closer. If she doesn't withdraw, You can read that as a sign of at least some comfort with your proximity. Then, during a lull in conversation or a moment of shared reflection, perhaps reminiscing about a past trip or a funny anecdote, you let your hand rest lightly on her knee. It could last just a second or linger briefly. The key is to remain calm and natural, allowing the moment to unfold without drawing unnecessary attention to your action. Why does the knee hold such significance for an older woman in particular? Part of it may be novelty. Many older women might recall partners who only focused on the most obvious erogenous zones, overlooking the subtlety of everyday physical connections. By shifting your attention to the knee, an area that is not typically the star of physical affection, you introduce an element of surprise and tenderness. She may realize that you're someone who appreciates the nuances of her body and emotions, rather than rushing toward the more typical spots. Yet you must also respect the boundary that the knee can represent. Some women might interpret a hand on the knee as a straightforward invitation to greater closeness, while others may not be ready for that. Always observe her immediate reaction. Does she smile or place her hand gently over yours? That's a positive sign. Does she move away or subtly angle her body in another direction? That might be a cue to step back. This simple, nearly universal piece of advice remains indispensable. Pay attention to her cues, both verbal and nonverbal. The knee touch can also dovetail nicely into the other forms of contact. If she's comfortable with your hand on her knee, it often paves the way for a brief caress on her arm, or a protective hand placed on her lower back as you stand up or move to another room. Each gesture, in turn, builds an accumulative sense of familiarity and trust. In essence, the knee is both an experiment and a confirmation, a quiet test of connection, and if reciprocated, an affirmation that deeper forms of intimacy may be welcomed. Now, let's move on to a more traditionally recognized zone of closeness, the waist. There's no denying that resting a hand on a woman's waist can exude a sense of romance. When we think of classic dance scenes, those slow, graceful moments, one partner often guides the other gently by the waist. This area symbolizes a sweet spot between protective guidance and the spark of intimate desire. However, precisely because it's so classically romantic, it deserves careful and respectful handling. For an older woman, the waist may hold special significance due to life experiences like childbirth, body image changes, or simply the heightened sense of personal space that can emerge over time. Some women might be quite comfortable with a hand on their waist in a dance-like embrace, while others may feel it's too immediate a leap if the emotional rapport isn't firmly established. This is where your attentiveness to context becomes paramount. Perhaps you're both cooking together in a kitchen, an environment ripe for playful banter and closeness. If you step behind her to reach for a spice or pass by in a tight space, you might place a gentle hand on her waist to let her know you're there, physically supporting or guiding her. If she leans into it slightly or doesn't seem startled, that's a good indication that she welcomes the proximity. The waist also resonates with themes of protection and partnership. Think of how a person might slip an arm around a partner's waist while walking together in a park or crossing a busy street. This subtle act says, "I'll keep you close, and we'll navigate this together." An older woman who may have carried the weight of responsibilities for much of her life can find genuine solace and comfort in someone showing her that kind of considerate guidance. It's not about asserting dominance, but rather about offering a supportive presence. On the flip side, it's crucial to ensure your gesture doesn't feel like a territorial grab. Some men mistakenly view placing a hand on a woman's waist as a signal of possessiveness or control. That's the last thing you want to project, particularly to someone who values her independence, an attribute many older women hold dear. The pressure and positioning of your hand should reflect warmth and gentle guidance rather than any sense of claiming. A relaxed palm or a barely there touch speaks volumes more than a tight grip. As with the previous touch points, monitoring her reaction is non-negotiable. If she tenses up, shifts away, or turns to look at you questioningly, it might be an indication that more emotional groundwork is needed before such contact feels comfortable. On the other hand, if she mirrors your motion, maybe sliding an arm around your waist in return or resting her hand on your shoulder, you've found a delightful harmony. Every comfortable interaction at the waist paves the way for deeper intimacy, strengthening the emotional synergy that is the true heart of any fulfilling connection. We now arrive at the beloved act of holding hands, arguably one of the most universally recognized gestures of affection. It might be so commonplace that its potency is often underestimated. Yet consider this. Holding hands involves intertwining fingers, bringing palms into contact, and quite literally, merging a small but highly sensitive part of each other's bodies. From a symbolic perspective, it represents unity, a joining of paths, or a willingness to walk in sync. For an older woman who might have gone years without experiencing genuine closeness, a simple act like this can spark profound emotional resonance. Holding hands can be initiated in various contexts. Perhaps you're both strolling in a scenic garden, the atmosphere calm and inviting. You notice that she seems relaxed. Maybe she's sharing a nostalgic memory or simply enjoying the sights. In that moment, you can gently slide your hand next to hers, palm open, silently asking if she'd like to share this tender gesture. If she accepts and interlocks her fingers with yours, the mutual agreement is clear. There's comfort and a desire for togetherness. Unlike a brief touch to the knee or the nape, holding hands is often a longer, more continuous gesture. This continuity allows it to serve as a soothing undercurrent to whatever you're doing, be it walking, talking, or quietly sitting side by side. The steady warmth of another's hand can provide reassurance that words sometimes struggle to convey. It's a silent but persistent reminder that you're not alone, that someone values your companionship enough to remain physically connected. For older women, the emotional impact can be especially poignant. Consider how many responsibilities life can impose: family demands, professional challenges, social roles, and so on. Holding hands can cut through all of that, offering a moment of simplicity and intimate human contact. It calls to mind earlier days when relationships might have been more spontaneous, or when romantic gestures were less burdened by life's complexities. Yet, even with that nostalgia, there's also something distinctly grown up about two adults choosing to hold hands out of mutual desire rather than youthful impulse. It's also important to note the subtle differences in how this might feel for her compared to a younger partner. The sense of safety and emotional validation might be deeper precisely because she's had a broader array of experiences, both good and bad. She understands that genuine connection can be rare, making the trust implied by hand-holding all the more precious. Of course, much like the other gestures, timing and context matter. If she seems preoccupied or uncomfortable, forcing the issue can create an awkward moment. But if your emotional bond is already budding, taking her hand at the right time can offer a profound reassurance that you see and cherish her individuality. Having explored the waist and hands, let's now delve into the allure of the wrist. It may not immediately come to mind when people think about intimate touch, but the wrist is among the most delicate and sensitive areas of the body. Skin is thinner there, blood vessels run close to the surface, and a gentle touch can send a subtle yet powerful wave of sensation up the arm. This makes the wrist a surprisingly romantic spot that can offer a moment of heightened awareness between two people. Picture this scenario. You're seated across from each other at a small table, maybe in a cozy cafe or a quiet corner of a park. She rests her arms on the table as you chat, and you notice the soft curve of her wrist just a few inches away. When you feel the conversation reaching a personal note, perhaps you're praising her taste in art, or she's opening up about a life experience, reaching out to softly trace your fingertips along her wrist can create a gentle, intimate spark. It's a fleeting contact, but one that can linger in her mind long after you remove your hand. Why does it resonate so strongly? Because the wrist is an intersection of vulnerability and subtle elegance. Throughout history, writers and artists have romanticized the act of kissing or lightly touching a wrist as a gesture of reverence. The pulse point there can symbolize vitality, and acknowledging it through touch can evoke an almost poetic sense of connection. For an older woman who may not have experienced such deliberate gestures in a long time, it can feel simultaneously surprising and captivating. Nevertheless, be mindful of context. A wrist touch can be unexpectedly potent, so it's often best introduced when you already share a level of emotional comfort. If you try it too soon, it could come off as overly forward or oddly intimate. Another consideration is cultural background. In some cultures, touches to certain parts of the body carry specific connotations, so it's wise to gauge her personal boundaries. One elegant way to explore the wrist's potential is by offering a light kiss there. Of course, this should only happen when the rapport is clearly established and you sense she's open to such a gesture. As your lips briefly meet the soft skin, you communicate a chivalrous respect, an homage, if you will, to the notion of courtly affection. That said, always consider her response carefully. If she appears surprised but amused and perhaps blushes or smiles, she's likely welcoming of the gesture. If she tenses or withdraws, respect that boundary and return to a more neutral form of contact. When done well, a wrist touch or a soft kiss can become a small but pivotal moment in your interactions. It's one of those gestures that can transition a pleasant connection into something more distinctly romantic, subtly reinforcing the message that you see her as someone special, deserving of tender care and attention. Now that we've covered all 7 touch points, lower back, nape, arm, knee, waist, hands, and wrist, it's crucial to emphasize one overarching principle. No individual gesture exists in isolation. They form a cohesive tapestry of intimacy, each thread weaving through emotional rapport, psychological readiness, and mutual respect. Whether it's a soft caress on the nape or a playful squeeze of the knee, each moment of contact must arise naturally from the flow of your shared experiences. When you both laugh at a joke, a light touch on her arm might feel organic. If she's recounting a nostalgic memory, resting your hand on her knee or gently grasping her wrist can underscore the depth of the moment. The uniting factor among these touch points is the acknowledgement of her entire being. An older woman brings a mosaic of experiences into any relationship: joys, trials, triumphs, and regrets. By intentionally using these touches, you're essentially telling her, "I'm here with you in every sense, physically, emotionally, and mentally." Such a holistic approach can be incredibly impactful, given that many older women might have encountered men who only saw them in segments, either as a mother, a career professional, or a romantic partner, but seldom all 3 simultaneously. Another point worth stressing is reciprocity. While it's tempting to focus solely on your actions, how you touch, when you touch, where you touch, the dynamics of genuine intimacy revolve around mutuality. Does she also reach out to you, whether by placing her hand on your arm or offering a playful nudge? Does she reciprocate the closeness you're attempting to create? If yes, you're likely on a promising path. If not, it might mean she needs more time, or that certain boundaries are still in place. Respecting her boundaries is non-negotiable, especially if you hope to nurture a sense of safety and open communication. In many cases, the emotional dimension of these touches can be further enriched through genuine compliments and affirmations. If you're admiring her intellect or praising the wisdom she shares, make the connection more tangible by lightly touching her arm or waist. The combination of verbal affirmation and physical contact can heighten the emotional significance of both. Similarly, if she expresses vulnerability, maybe confiding in you about a fear or regret, show your support with a gentle hand on her lower back or a comforting grip on her hand, reinforcing that she's not alone in that moment of truth. Finally, remember that none of these suggestions are about manipulating her emotions or engaging in covert tactics. Authenticity is key. The greatest gift you can offer is your real self, flaws, uncertainties, and all, paired with a willingness to understand her as a complex individual. In the end, physical gestures are simply conduits for expressing what truly lies beneath: curiosity about her life, admiration for her resilience, and a sincere desire to be a positive presence in her world. Let's also address a vital nuance: the line between sensuous and respectful touch. It's a dynamic boundary that can shift based on setting, mood, and the evolution of your connection. What feels playful and light-hearted in a private living room might feel too forward in a public cafe. Conversely, a gentle hand on the small of her back while navigating a crowded street might feel perfectly appropriate and even protective, whereas it could be less so in the privacy of a bedroom if she's not in the mood for physical closeness. Older women often have a well-honed sense of what feels genuine versus what seems contrived. If your touch is motivated primarily by the goal of physical pleasure without the emotional resonance to back it up, she'll likely sense it. That's not necessarily a deal breaker if you're both clear about wanting a more casual relationship, but if you're aiming for deeper emotional intimacy, your actions must align with a broader pattern of care, attentiveness, and sincerity. Remember, too, that sensory experiences vary. Some people are more touch-sensitive than others. She might absolutely love having her hand held for long stretches, or she might find it stifling. The same applies to the nape, waist, or wrist. Communication remains essential. If you're uncertain about her comfort level, it's far better to ask gently than to assume. A simple question like, "Is this okay?" or "Do you like it when I hold your hand?" can open the door to honest dialogue, which ultimately strengthens trust. In the context of building a fulfilling relationship, consider introducing variety in your touches. Relying on the same gesture repeatedly can dull the initial spark. If you sense she enjoyed a light caress on her nape once, you don't have to do it every single time you're close. Switch between different forms of contact, maybe a playful nudge on the arm during a humorous moment, followed by a brief hand-holding session while strolling through a garden. The unpredictability keeps things fresh and shows you're not simply following a set script. Also, be mindful of how these intimate moments interplay with your verbal communication. A well-timed compliment, made in a tone that's sincere rather than flirtatiously glib, can amplify the effect of a touch. For instance, saying, "I really admire your perspective on this," while gently placing your hand on her wrist, can create a sweet synergy. This synergy is often what transforms a mundane exchange into something memorably touching. Lastly, as we near the conclusion of Part 2, it's worth recognizing that these touches are not a guarantee of romantic success. They're invitations, moments of closeness that open up the possibility for deeper connection. How you nurture that possibility, by listening, empathizing, sharing vulnerabilities, and respecting her boundaries, will ultimately determine whether your gestures blossom into a genuine bond or remain fleeting encounters. As Part 2 draws to a close, let's reflect on the emotional tapestry we've woven. We've explored each of the 7 recommended touch points in detail, highlighting how subtle variations in timing, pressure, and context can dramatically impact the meaning of each gesture. We've also delved into the psychological underpinnings, how an older woman's history, experiences, and sense of self shape her receptivity to these touches. If there's one central idea to take away from all this, it's that genuine intimacy transcends technique. Techniques in themselves are merely tools. They become powerful only when wielded with authentic care. Imagine an artist who has mastered the mechanics of painting but lacks inspiration or emotional depth. No matter how skilled their brushstrokes, the art rarely resonates. Likewise, you can practice each of these touch points meticulously, but if they aren't accompanied by genuine affection, curiosity, and empathy, the result will likely feel hollow. An older woman in particular is likely to pick up on any incongruity between your words and actions. If you speak poetically about wanting a meaningful connection but handle her body dismissively, or, conversely, if you touch her gently but treat her emotional revelations flippantly, she will sense the disconnect. What you're aiming for is a sense of alignment, where your physical gestures and verbal expressions reinforce each other, painting a consistent picture of respect and growing affection. This level of alignment requires introspection on your part. Ask yourself why you're pursuing this connection. Is it mere novelty? Or do you genuinely appreciate who she is, her stories, her humor, her worldview? If it's the latter, these touches will come more naturally. You'll approach them not as checkpoints on a roadmap to seduction, but as organic outgrowths of real admiration. Conversely, if you find yourself ticking boxes in a mental checklist, it might be worthwhile to reevaluate your intentions, or at least approach the situation with a bit more sincerity. As we transition to Part 3, we'll delve deeper into sustaining and expanding the intimacy you've begun to cultivate. Touch is a potent gateway, but what comes after those initial moments of closeness? How do you transform a spark into a gentle, enduring flame? We'll explore strategies for deepening emotional bonds, communicating personal desires in a respectful manner, and navigating potential challenges that may arise specifically in age gap dynamics or other relational complexities. Keep in mind that the ultimate goal is not to memorize a set of moves, but to refine your ability to communicate caring, understanding, and presence, both physically and emotionally. When approached with the right mindset, each contact can become a stepping stone toward a deeper, more meaningful relationship, one that honors the richness of her experiences and invites her to share them with you in a safe, supportive atmosphere. In Part 3, we shift our focus toward integrating these physical touches into a broader, more holistic approach to connection, one that acknowledges both the joys and potential challenges of forming a bond with an older woman. The initial phase of rapport building often centers around attraction, fun, and discovery. You've learned which areas of her body might respond positively to your gentle gestures. The lower back that craves reassurance, the nape that opens a doorway to closeness, the hands that lock together in shared warmth, and so on. But what happens when you want to move beyond the stage of pleasant acquaintances or even budding romance to something deeper? One cornerstone of such depth is genuine emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy emerges when two people feel comfortable enough to share personal vulnerabilities, hopes, and fears without judgment. Physical touch can be a powerful catalyst for emotional intimacy, but it needs to be paired with open and honest communication. This is where many relationships stumble. There's plenty of physical chemistry, yet the emotional component remains underdeveloped. With an older woman, the stakes for emotional alignment can be higher. She's likely aware of what she wants and what she doesn't, and she may be less inclined to invest time in a relationship that lacks the potential for true mutual understanding. To navigate this effectively, consider using your touches not just as signifiers of affection, but also as invitations to talk. For instance, After sharing a light touch on her knee or waist, it might feel natural to ask, "How did that feel for you? Is there anything you'd like more or less of?" Such questions might sound vulnerable or even awkward at first, but they open the door to valuable feedback. They also demonstrate a willingness to place her comfort and preferences at the center of your shared experience. Another aspect is congruence. If you're praising her sense of humor, life perspective, or achievements, make sure your physical gestures align with the admiration you express verbally. A gentle squeeze of her hand when you commend her for a recent accomplishment can be a small but validating token of support. By weaving these physical and verbal affirmations together, you create a multidimensional space in which your connection can flourish. Lastly, remember that real growth often happens in the spaces between your encounters. If you're apart for a while, perhaps due to work, travel, or family obligations, staying connected through thoughtful communication can keep the embers of intimacy alive. This is where those magnetic messages can come back into play, but now their purpose extends beyond mere intrigue. They can serve as reminders of shared experiences, inside jokes, or even mutual goals. Send her a note that references a particularly meaningful conversation you had, and sign off with a gentle promise of future closeness, whether that's a hand to hold or a gentle kiss on her wrist. At this juncture, it's helpful to address some of the emotional complexities that might arise, specifically in relationships involving an age gap. It's not uncommon for friends, family members, or even the public to voice their opinions, sometimes negatively, about a younger man dating an older woman. These external pressures can introduce stress or self-consciousness that might dampen the enthusiasm both of you feel in private moments. Consequently, each touch, each gesture of closeness might carry an added weight of defiance or the need to prove the legitimacy of your bond. This is where mutual reassurance can become a key factor. If she's feeling uncertain about the future or worried about social judgments, a timely, comforting hand on her lower back or a tender clasp of her hands can serve as a non-verbal reminder of your commitment to stand by her. Of course, words are vital here too. Let her know explicitly that you value her for who she is, not just for the novelty of being with someone older. Affirm her worth and individuality, making it clear that your touches are more than mere flirtation. They're an outward expression of a respect that runs deep. Another layer of complexity might arise from different life stages. Perhaps she's juggling career responsibilities, family obligations, or even grandchildren, while you're in a different phase of life. These disparities can affect how and when physical intimacy is expressed. You might find that spontaneous dates or long weekends away aren't always feasible. Instead, intimacy might need to fit into carefully carved-out segments of her schedule. Far from being an insurmountable barrier, this reality can deepen your relationship's sense of intention. Every touch becomes more meaningful when time is finite and not taken for granted. In such scenarios, the subtle, everyday touches can become all the more precious. A quick embrace before she rushes off to a work meeting, a gentle rub on her arm while she's on the phone handling family matters. These mini moments of closeness reaffirm your connection amid life's busyness. Older women often value these smaller gestures more than grand declarations if they consistently demonstrate understanding and reliability. Finally, be prepared to tackle conversations about the future. If you're growing closer, she may wonder how your lives can align in the long term. Here, physical touch can serve as a grounding mechanism during potentially intense discussions. Sitting side by side, maybe with your hand lightly resting on her knee or waist, can create a calmer atmosphere in which to talk about hopes, fears, and logistics. By maintaining a sense of physical closeness during emotionally heavy exchanges, you reinforce a sense of unity, that regardless of obstacles, you're on the same side, ready to navigate the path ahead together. Let's also take a moment to revisit the concept of consent in this evolving dynamic. While the term is often associated with more overtly sexual scenarios, it remains equally crucial in the subtler realm of affectionate touch. Consent isn't just about getting a verbal yes before escalating physical contact. It's a fluid, ongoing dialogue that can be both spoken and unspoken. In the context of an older woman, who may have seen a broad spectrum of male behaviors over her lifetime, demonstrating a sensitive approach to consent can be immensely reassuring. This sensitivity can manifest in various ways. For instance, you might begin with a light touch on her hand or lower back and observe how she responds. Does she lean in, maintain eye contact, or otherwise indicate that she's comfortable? Great. If she moves away or changes the subject abruptly, that's a signal she might not be ready for that particular form of contact. Rather than taking it personally or pushing further, respect her pace. You can even ask, in a gentle tone, "Is this all right?" or "Let me know if you ever feel uncomfortable." Such open communication diffuses tension and shows you prioritize her well-being over your own agenda. Another layer of consent involves the possibility that her comfort level might fluctuate based on her emotional state. Maybe she's had a tough day or received stressful news, and she's not in the headspace for physical closeness at that moment. Giving her room to breathe and letting her know you understand can go a long way in deepening the trust between you. Often this space leads to an even stronger connection once she feels ready to accept your affectionate gestures again. Moreover, remember that consent is a two-way street. If you ever feel uncomfortable or want to slow things down, it's equally valid for you to communicate your boundaries. A relationship founded on mutual respect values both partners' comfort levels. This mutual aspect of consent is especially important when there's a notable age difference, as it balances any power dynamics and underscores that both individuals have equal agency. Finally, keep in mind that older women, through their life experiences, often have a keen sense for emotional authenticity. Going through the motions of asking for consent without genuinely caring about her response can be as off-putting as not asking at all. The point is to cultivate an atmosphere where both of you feel free to express your needs, wants, and hesitations. When that atmosphere is present, each intimate touch becomes a shared journey rather than a unilateral action, transforming the relationship into a space that honors and nourishes both parties' emotional landscapes. As your connection grows, you might find yourself wondering how to maintain the excitement and spark over the long term. It's one thing to establish an initial wave of attraction and closeness through mindful touches. It's another to keep that sensation alive as routines set in or as real-life challenges arise. Yet maintaining that spark isn't about constantly upping the ante with more daring or overtly sexual forms of contact. Instead, it often involves finding new ways to surprise and delight each other within the comfort zone you've already established. One technique is to revisit earlier, simpler gestures, but present them in fresh contexts. Suppose you first touched her wrist in a quiet cafe, marking a moment of delicate intimacy. Weeks or months later, you could recreate that scenario, perhaps at a different cafe or even at home, by lightly tracing your fingertips in the same spot while referencing the fond memory. This fusion of the past and present can evoke a sense of continuity in your relationship, signaling that you pay attention to the small but significant moments that define your bond. Another approach is to layer physical touch with shared activities. Maybe you both enjoy dancing, whether slow waltzes or playful salsa steps. Learning a new dance style together creates opportunities for waist and hand contact in a setting that feels both structured and spontaneous. Alternatively, if you both enjoy reading, consider reading a book or poem together while cuddling on a sofa, occasionally reaching out to touch her knee or nape as a silent emphasis on particularly emotive passages. These integrated experiences build deeper emotional anchors, making each touch more meaningful. Honoring her individuality also goes a long way in preserving that spark. As you learn more about her preferences, maybe she loves having her shoulders massaged after a long day, or she appreciates a gentle hand on her waist when you greet her. Incorporate those insights into your everyday interactions. Such attentiveness conveys that you see her not as an interchangeable partner, but as a unique person whose comfort and pleasure you cherish. Lastly, it helps to stay curious. Ask her about her desires or fantasies, even if they're not overtly sexual in nature. Maybe she's always wanted to travel to a particular locale or try a specific hobby. Express your willingness to explore those interests with her, using touch as an emotional glue that binds these new experiences to the sense of closeness you're both cultivating. The dynamic interplay of shared adventures and nurturing physical contact can keep the relationship brimming with vitality, reminding both of you why you became drawn to each other in the first place. As we near the conclusion of this comprehensive exploration, it's worth emphasizing that physical touch can be a conduit for healing, particularly for older women who may carry emotional scars from past relationships. Everyone has a unique narrative. Perhaps she's endured betrayal, emotional neglect, or even a challenging marriage that left her questioning her worth. In these cases, the gentle, patient form of touch we've been discussing can take on a therapeutic quality. It can help rebuild her sense of trust and self-value, reminding her that she deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. Of course, you are not her therapist, nor should you attempt to be. True healing often requires professional support or personal introspection, but your role as a caring partner can complement those processes. When she sees that you consistently honor her boundaries, listen attentively, and offer comforting touches at just the right moments, it can create a safe emotional harbor. In this harbor, old wounds may begin to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of possibility. That said, it's essential to maintain emotional balance. You might feel an urge to save her or to solve all her issues through your affection. While the intention might be good-hearted, it can inadvertently place undue pressure on both parties. She may sense that you have unrealistic expectations about your ability to fix everything, leading to disappointment or guilt if she doesn't rapidly recover from past hurts. Instead, aim for a supportive stance, letting her know you're there as a companion and ally, while acknowledging that genuine healing is an internal process. Additionally, this supportive dimension of physical intimacy can be reciprocal. You too might have emotional scars or insecurities that you're working through. There's a form of vulnerability in revealing those parts of yourself to someone older who has lived through her own share of life's challenges. Yet, by allowing her to see your vulnerabilities, you foster a climate of mutual empathy. Her gentle touch can be just as healing for you. The cycle of giving and receiving comfort becomes a cornerstone of a mature relationship. Over time, these nurturing touches, be it a protective hand on the lower back, a delicate kiss on the wrist, or simply holding hands during a moment of shared reflection, acquire layers of meaning that reach beyond mere attraction. They become markers of shared growth, testaments to the fact that both of you are actively choosing to walk through life's complexities together. Such a foundation, built on empathy, respect, and consistent reassurance, often stands as a bulwark against the inevitable storms every relationship faces, whether fueled by societal judgment, personal struggles, or unforeseeable life events. In charting the path forward, consider how you might continue to refine your approach. Even after you feel you've mastered the art of subtle and respectful touch, remain open to learning. Each person, each relationship, offers a new context and new nuances. One of the hallmarks of a fulfilling connection is the constant discovery of deeper layers of each other and of oneself. If you maintain an attitude of curiosity, you'll find that there's always more to explore, more to appreciate, and more to learn about the woman by your side. An often overlooked aspect of this learning process is self-reflection. After spending time with her, take a few moments to consider what worked and what didn't. Did you notice her eyes light up when you gently ran your hand along her arm? Did she tense slightly when you put your arm around her waist in a crowded setting? These observations are invaluable. Reflecting on them helps you refine your gestures in the future, ensuring that your touches remain attuned to her comfort and pleasure. By embracing this feedback loop, you elevate touch from a static technique to a dynamic form of communication. It's also beneficial to share your thoughts and experiences with her, so long as it's done in a caring and non-accusatory manner. If you felt her become uneasy at a particular moment, you might bring it up gently. "I noticed you seemed a bit tense when I held your waist earlier. Would you prefer if I do that less often, or was it just the situation we were in?" This kind of open-ended question signals that you respect her perspective and that you're willing to adapt. Moreover, staying true to yourself is just as important. If you're not naturally someone who feels comfortable with overt displays of affection in public, don't force it. Authenticity resonates far more powerfully than any contrived behavior aimed at impressing her. Remember, older women are typically adept at reading emotional cues. A forced gesture might impress briefly, but can harm the trust you're working so hard to build. If you're more inclined to intimate moments behind closed doors, express that. She might appreciate your honesty and reciprocate with her own preferences. Finally, approach each new milestone in your relationship, be it traveling together, meeting each other's families, or celebrating holidays, as opportunities to deepen intimacy. The touches that once served as tentative explorations can become comforting habits or cherished rituals. For instance, if holding hands has become a favorite pastime, you might find yourselves instinctively reaching for each other's hands whenever you stroll through a new city. This continuity weaves a thread of emotional security through the evolving chapters of your life together, grounding you both in a shared sense of belonging. We have arrived at the end of this extensive exploration, yet in many ways this is only the beginning of your journey. You've learned about 7 distinct touch points: the lower back, the nape, the arm, the knee, the waist, the hands, and the wrist, and how each one can be a doorway to meaningful connection. You've also gained insight into the emotional undercurrents that shape an older woman's responsiveness, from the past experiences she carries to the everyday realities of her current life. But perhaps the most important lesson is that physical touch is not a standalone solution or a magic trick. It's part of a broader tapestry of emotional intelligence, genuine respect, and sustained curiosity about your partner's inner world. When you place your hand on her lower back, do it with a sense of gratitude for her trust. When you brush your fingertips along her wrist, let it speak to her innate beauty and resilience. And when you hold her hands, intertwining your fingers with hers, remember that you're not just holding hands. You're holding a culmination of life lessons, dreams, fears, and the ever-present possibility of love that transcends age. As you move forward, remain conscious of your own growth as well. Relationships, especially those that bridge age differences, have the potential to expand your perspective on life, love, and personal development. Embrace the journey with humility, acknowledging that you don't have all the answers and that every moment, whether joyful or challenging, is an opportunity to learn and evolve. Keep the lines of communication open. Discussing boundaries, desires, and expectations keeps misunderstandings at bay and fosters a depth of intimacy that mere physical gestures alone cannot sustain. In the end, the most magical aspect of intimacy lies in its mutual creation. You and she are co-authors of a story that blends touch, conversation, shared laughter, and collective dreams. This story will inevitably have its twists and turns, perhaps even conflicts and reconciliations. But if the foundation is trust, built through mindful, respectful, and caring touches, then it stands a strong chance of blossoming into something lasting and profoundly fulfilling. Carry these insights with you, adapt them to your unique dynamics, and never lose sight of the fact that what truly captivates an older woman, or anyone really, is not the brilliance of your technique but the sincerity of your heart. Physical gestures may open the door, but genuine empathy and affection invite her to stay. And in that sacred space, where each contact is a testament to mutual respect and a willingness to grow together, lies the real art of connection. Ultimately, the magic of these intimate gestures isn't just about physical touch. It's about creating lasting moments that resonate deeply with her emotions. Each subtle move, from the gentle caress on her wrist to a protective hand on her lower back, whispers a powerful message. You're special and you're valued. By approaching intimacy with genuine respect and emotional intelligence, you transform ordinary interactions into extraordinary experiences she won't easily forget. Now it's your turn. Have you experienced the power of these gestures? Do you have other secrets for creating powerful attraction and connection? Let us know in the comments below. Join the conversation and share your wisdom. We're excited to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going.